to thank everybody for joining us for today's webinar. It is hosted by the New York Integrated Food Safety Center of Excellence. My name is Paula Huth, and I'm the coordinator for the New York COE, and we're excited today that Zachary McCormic from the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services will be presenting on Epi Info. Zach is the foodborne disease epidemiologist at the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services. His PowerPoints typically have a picture of him with one of his dogs, which today's does not. I'm surprised, but that's how you usually would recognize him from his presentations. His presentation today is titled Using Epi Info Templates to Build Outbreak Questionnaires. And we have had a lot of interest in learning more about Epi Info and how to use it to quickly build a questionnaire when you're in the midst of an outbreak. And so we're super excited for Zach's presentation today. And with that, I think I'm just going to share my screen with you, or have you share your screen with us. And if you just give me 1 second to do that, I will. And should be set now. We'll have a little gap, and then we'll start right up. And again, just a reminder to put your phones on mute and not hold, just because hold is accompanied by background music often. And one other thing I'll say is that you can write any questions you have in the chat function. There'll also be ample time at the end to ask any questions you have for Zach. But again, if you have something and you don't want to forget it, you can write it in the chat function, and we'll get to them whenever there's a break in the webinar or afterwards. So I will pass it over to you now, Zach.
Thanks, Paula. So can everyone hear me okay? I'll try my best not to mumble, and I'll try to make sure I go nice and slow. So we're doing this Epi Info 7 kind of just an introduction thing to templates. Hopefully it's a good tool for you guys. We use it here in New Hampshire pretty consistently. So I guess I'll just kind of skip around a bit. This is to fulfill a request from our regional partners. We talked about it at a little regional get-together we had over the summer, and people just wanted to know more about it and how we use it. For me here in New Hampshire, Epi Info 7 is a very valuable resource. It's one that's publicly available and anyone can use it. Some schools even train people in using it when they're in school itself. So Epi Info is a software tool that allows data entry, database construction.
After the tone, please record your message. When you finish recording, hang up or press the pound key for more options.
So we have the software tool that allows for data entry, database construction, and data analysis. The data forms are completely customizable, so you can adjust them to your needs, and it can be deployed using desktop and mobile devices or a web or cloud-based system. For outbreaks we have here, we do use the web-based system, where we'll actually send our participants a link. They fill out the survey, and it comes back to our secured server. It's free, costs $0, free 99, the best price ever. The website, which I've provided the link to above, includes tutorials, user guides, and shape files for maps. So a little bit about Epi Info itself. You can design forms. This includes surveys, outbreak questionnaires, routine surveillance forms, things of that nature. You can collect data, either manually entering it or sending out to people via a web survey or a cloud capture. There's some basic data analysis tools in Epi Info, but there's also a really nice export feature. You can export to Excel or a comma separated value, and then you can then import it into a more robust surveillance tool, or statistical program, sorry. And you can also build maps. EpiMap is built around the Esri map object software, so you can do some geocoding stuff if necessary. So how do we use this in New Hampshire? In New Hampshire, we use it several different ways. First, that I've mentioned before, is outbreak survey development. We can have our investigators administer a survey over the computer, or we can have respondents get a link to the survey themselves. We've had really good success both ways. Our NHGQ is completely all Epi Info. It's a a big form and it's difficult to build it into the system, our surveillance system. So instead we just have a link, and we send the link to the investigator, they'll fill it out with the case. And we're working on updating our COVIS form and making that built into Epi Info so we can do the same thing with the data stuff. Some pre and post test work. This is used with provider detailing visits. We'll send them a pre-test. They'll answer the questions to the best of their abilities, and then we'll send them a post-test to see if they've learned anything from that visit. And our HAI program uses Epi Info 7 to collect influenza vaccine information from long-term care facilities and from hospitals around the state. It's used in a wide variety of different ways. So why do we use Epi Info? It's repeatable. Templates, which I'll be talking about later today, for these outbreak investigations can be saved and added to a survey at any given time. Accessibility. All staff at the office can access Epi Info and edit a survey as needed, and the web survey allows for easy data entry and not just limited to the one device. And finally, security. So for security, all of our data are stored on an encrypted server, and multiple passcodes are needed to access the data. So that means that no one can really get into it. So today I'll be showing you guys how to use Epi Info templates to build an outbreak questionnaire. We'll be talking about what templates are, how to use templates, and then I'll walk you through two examples. First with a local investigation, and then one that's more NHGQ based. I'm going to warn everyone right now, by the end of this, you're going to be super mad at me because you're going to see how easy it is to build a questionnaire using Epi Info, and you're going to smack yourself in the head and say, why was I not doing this beforehand? So what are these templates? Templates are a feature that allows you to save all or part of your project for reuse or sharing. Templates can be created using any of the following: either a field level template, which is where a group of fields are combined to form a template. This is typically done with demographic information. A page level template, which is where an entire page can be saved as a template. This will be a page with interview questions for let's say for a selected food group, or you have a common like for a symptom page or something like that. A form template, which is an entire data collection form where multiple pages can be saved. This is the one that I like to use the most. And finally is project, where you can save an entire Epi Info project with multiple forms and just copy and replace them as needed. These are all saved as an XML document. Ask your IT people what that means. And they're used by Epi Info to create the fields, pages, forms, and or projects. So how to use these templates. To create them for a field template, you just highlight what you want us to make as a template, right-click, and then save selection as a template. You'll see this up in the right corner. Here I've selected last name, age, some of the other fields, and I just right-click anywhere on the screen and select Save Selection as Template. I can then name it, and it's stored to my Epi Info server. The page template, so you right-click on a page name, then click Save Page as a Template. It's over here to the right, slightly right, middle right, I guess. Form template, same thing again. It's going to save that form. And then project template, where it's going to actually save the whole project, or we can quick save it as a template. Two different ways of doing the same thing. So for using them, they're all drag and drop. So what I mean by that is you take it from the left toolbar and you drag it onto your workspace. It will open a brand new, it'll put the fields in place. So for example, I go to my templates, I click fields, and I click demographics. I drop it onto my workspace, and here is my demographic template, all loaded up and ready to go. It does take a few minutes, but a few minutes just to get the template to load is a whole lot less time than entering all of these things manually. So like I said earlier, project is going to be a brand new project. Form is going to create a new individual form. Page, just one individual page within your current form. And then field will create a group of questions for an individual page. So what we do is we use these templates to design a form that fits our needs. There are some standard templates that come with Epi Info. There are some templates that I've built here for New Hampshire, and then Paul and I have been working on developing some templates that the COE is going to be able to have available on their website. And all you do is you just drag and drop them where the questions are needed. You can customize it to your own outbreak, and you can put your own state-specific spin on the form. And what I mean by that is when I show you our individual New Hampshire form, what I mean by our individual spin. So now I'm going to go to a live demo. Before I do, does anyone have any really pressing questions they'd like to ask right now? Okay, let's push on. So scenario 1 is an outbreak, exclamation point. We're following up on a series of complaints following a wedding reception, which was catered by everyone's favorite restaurant, Restaurant A. We have a menu of foods that were served and a list of attendees with contact information. So, you have that perfect storm there. We can contact everyone and have a complete survey. So we're going to use Epi Info to build a questionnaire to administer to those who attended this wedding reception. So when I said our state-specific spin, this is what some of our templates or some of our investigation forms look like. We have information about the demographics, who we're talking to. For a wedding reception, we're going to ask them where they sat, what foods they had eaten, and then if they were ill before the wedding, because maybe that's our patient X, or after the wedding, because maybe that's the case we need to be following up with. And so what we do is we administer these to all of our, in this case, we'll administer them to everyone who attended the wedding in hopes of finding out more about what had made them sick. So let me go to Epi Info really quickly. So here we have a blank Epi Info page. Come with me over here to the left, and you're going to see the different template styles. The project level template is the biggest template. That's going to build a whole brand new project. The form is technically the second biggest, but it goes in alphabetical order. The form is where it's going to add a new form up here where it says NHOB. That would be a new form. Page level is going to add an individual page. Here I have some that are created in advance. And where it says like page 1, then we'll add a second page to it. And then finally, we have our different field templates. I'll get into these later, but these are going to be smaller sections. So what I would do in this case is I would go to my form template. I would grab my NHGI outbreak template, and I would drag it over to the main screen. You see there's a little pointer, and there's a little kind of half-filled box underneath it. I'm going to let it go, and what it's going to do is it's going to start to build all of these questions into the form. See on the left here, it says NHGI outbreak. First it built demos. This is our demographics page. And then food history, where it's just a placeholder for our food history page. And now it's building our prior symptoms. We can see if anyone was ill before the event. Now it's building our post-symptoms page. These are all templates that I had built previously that we were using consistently. And so instead of reinventing the wheel every time we had an outbreak, all I did was just build these templates, and I was able to just drag and drop. You guys saw me do it, and I was able to build the backbone of our investigation form in just a few minutes. So here we have our demographic page with all of our fields that match from what we had on our previous form. Here we have just our basic food exposure page. So what I would do is I would just add new questions to it in this format, or if we had other open-ended ones, we would add them there. I could right-click on food history and insert page and make another page of food history if we had to do multiple pages. We have our prior symptoms, our post-symptoms. These are for symptoms after the event. I can update our case definition, update our exposure window, and then this is just a drop-down question for yes or no. If yes, it'll bring up a calendar for when the people fill out the survey, and then all of the symptoms, and gives us the information if they visited their doctor, did they get a diagnosis, were they hospitalized, things like that. That will allow us to follow up with that patient as needed. And then our other information section, if you have any additional questions, especially encouraging them to get a stool sample, things like that. And then finally, our contact information. What I showed you guys there was just a real quick and dirty way of building this template. Fun fact, we did this a week before the Christmas break. We had an investigation. We built the template this way and had the survey out and deployed to people within 2 hours. And that included all of our online testing and stuff like that. If we wanted to send the survey out, we would publish the survey as a web survey. And what that would mean is we'd be able to get a link, and we could send people the link and they could fill it out. or we can go to enter data, and it'll create a table. It'll take a moment here, but then I just want you guys to see, once we get these templates built, we can very easily start to use them in a very short period of time. So here's our survey questionnaire. We can enter in our dates, stuff like that. And that is our simple outbreak at the local level example for how we're able to build an investigation form using templates. With the exception of the food history, that would be, in this case, probably the main thing that needed to be changed in addition to the case definitions. If we thought it was a norovirus, we could make our exposure window smaller. If it were like a cyclospora, we could make it bigger, things like that. But for the most part, that's kind of the quick and dirty to how it works. If you have common foods that you're having that are associated with outbreaks, you can make a template with those common foods listed in your template and just quickly drag and drop them over. So I'm going to take a moment and go back to the chat box and see if we have any questions. So the question from Rinalda, are those templates already available for new users? The ones that I've shown you today are not, but it's the Epi Info templates they have now were the basic demographic template. Like if I go back up to this slide here, this is the demographic template that was built into Epi Info that you can use. The ones that I use were all custom built. Some that I use later were actually ones that Rashida at CDC built or made as part of her form that we just kind of adapted. And question from Lisa, can you program skip patterns into the Epi Info forms? Yes, you can. We go back to Epi Info. We will go back to open our form. We want outbreak, right? Yes. What we would do then, edit form. No, sorry. It's coming. It takes a moment. And then we would go to check code. And then here I can tell it, if the person said no, they weren't sick before the event, then to skip all of those event-related questions. Okay, so there's that one. Oh, man, you guys are pinging me with questions now. For the web survey, in our case, it's stored on our secured IT side server, where our IT people worked with the Epi Info development team to build that backend server. There's a few people over there. I can get their email addresses and send them to Paula, and she can distribute them to the group. They're the people who helped us. When I went to their training class, they said they'd be willing to assist other states as needed. It's just a matter of getting them and your IT people in contact and then continuing to bug them to do it. Add a single field question, sure. So we're going to close out of check code. And then I want to make a checkbox field. So I'm going to click checkbox, drag and drop it over onto the screen. It's going to give me that question or prompt. Are you learning something? And then I click tab, and in the field name, it automatically reduces so that it takes out all the spaces or punctuation. It's going to give me an option where I want my box. I can adjust my font. And I want to make it bold, and I want to make it big, and I want to make it underlined so everyone can see it. And I'll click OK, OK. And then there's our checkbox. If we click the box, that implies that it's a yes. If it's left blank, that implies that it's a no. But that would be something you'd have to do, write into the question or something like that. We can also do text boxes. I'm going to pick a text box. Favorite part of the training so far. I'm going to click tab again. It's going to make our field name what it was, but I can adjust it. So now it's just going to be fave part. I can adjust the maximum number of characters. I like to leave it blank. I can make it a read-only or a required field, so you have to answer it before going forward. Once again, I can adjust my fonts as necessary. Then I click OK. I can adjust my question and move it around the screen. I can make my box bigger. I can make my box smaller, things like that. On the survey respondent side, that's kind of what I showed earlier when I went to enter data. If you do it on the web survey side, it actually comes out as like this really clean-looking professional thing where you can see just has all your fields and it looks really clean and professional. If you look closely, you see these little dots. The dots are just there for formatting. They're not there on the final page. But you'll see there's like headers, there's footers, you can add a progress bar, things like that. Question about tweaking the template. You really can't tweak the template without saving over it. So let's say that I wanted to make this my template. I would highlight, right-click, and then save selection as template, and then it's going to give me I can name it however I want. There's no real way to edit a template. You'd have to delete or add it to your screen, delete the old one, make edits, save it as a new template. Frustrating, but it's better than having to start from scratch, I guess. Question about publishing of the web survey. I'm not sure about the answer to that one. On our side, our host, who is us, would be willing to house the survey, so I guess that kind of gets around that. And it's owned on our whatever network. But I don't know the answer to that one. I apologize. And for data analysis, yes. So bear with me for a moment. We have to go back to enter data. And then what I would do is you could click Dashboard, and that's going to bring up the Epi Info dashboard where you can do different features with the data that you've entered, get basic frequencies, add some of their basic filters and stuff like that. Since there's no data, it's just going to end up being blank for us. Or you can go to line listing, which is what I prefer, where you click the drop down. An interactive one's going to open it up in a new Epi Info style window where I can move things around. Printable is going to put it onto an HTML page. I haven't found those super useful, but the MS Excel I do find very useful when I can export the data and then import it into SAS or into Excel for building Epi curves and stuff like that. Okay, so let's go back to our slides real quickly. And our second example is going to be a cluster investigation. Once again, we're in the perfect world where our whole genome information gets entered and analyzed within minutes. So we're investigating a cluster of Salmonella Newport cases. We've identified 3 identical isolates through whole genome sequencing. All 3 are 0 single nucleotides apart, and all within 30 days. All 3 reside in the same county, and we called our friends over at the lab, and we were told there are 4 other Salmonella Newport isolates with whole genome pending in our public health lab who all happen to reside in the same county. Crystal, our amazing enteric nurse, has already interviewed those first 3 cases. 2 of them are vegetarian, and the 3rd one's a vegan. So we can rule out our meats, but they all are very big salad eaters. So we were able to reduce it down to some type of produce or leafy greens. So what I'm going to do next is build an Epi Info survey for this cluster-specific questionnaire. Bear with me for a moment. Here we are. Here is our first page example. So whenever we're going to build something that's NHGQ-based in Epi Info, it's either we can do it by paper and then have to analyze it by hand, and that takes forever, or we can just build a quick and easy database in Epi Info, send the link to the investigators, they re-interview the cases, or in this case, interview the new cases as they get the information and enter into the survey. We did this with a Campylobacter cluster we had last year, and it worked out really, really well. So here we have our just basic information, our case ID from our system, our lab ID, so our 2 things talk together, cluster code, who's interviewing, some basic clinical clinical information on page 1, and I've already preloaded some things because they're big. Sources of food at home and sources of food away from home. All these are taken straight from the NHGQ. And then on page 4, right now it's blank. Notice it's in landscape mode. That's just so it fits better. I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom left corner where it says templates. Open up our field templates, and all of these are labeled in the same sections they are in the NHGQ. We have our illness information, allergies, chicken, processed meats, etc., and they're all going to line up well. So what I want to do first is I want to grab leafy greens part 1, drag it, drop it onto the screen. Do you see the blue box? That's telling me where my information is going to be, and then I'm going to drop it. And what it's doing is it's creating all of these different variables from my template and putting them into my form.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You too.
So give it a moment, and there we go. All of our page 1 for leafy greens that are not homegrown have been entered into our form. We can do some minor formatting, like I don't like the way this looks, so I'm going to slide it over a little bit, and then let it think. I'm going to slide this one over a little bit, so that way when we go live, it looks a little better. I want to move that one there. And just so you can see little bits and pieces are going to make this look a little bit better. And then I'm going to go back to page 5, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to grab leafy greens part 2, drag it, and drop it onto the screen. It's going to load it, and it's going to create our form based on the NHGQ templates. It does take a moment to enter these fields, but like I said, it's a lot faster than doing it all manually. So I think it's worth the extra 5 to 7 seconds. I just want to drag this one over here so you can see our question mark. And there we go. So I have other ones I can add too. Like I said, these are all based on the NHGQ. So we'll go to page 6. It's another blank page. I want to add our herbs and sprouts. Click it, drag it, get our blue square where it lines up well, and then drop it. And it creates all of our fields. And then same thing again, I can publish this, or I can just go straight to enter data, and then I can be using this survey within a matter of minutes to be interviewing our new cases or to be contacting cases we've already interviewed for re-interviews. So let's go back and see, does anyone have any questions about that part of it? Or is there anything that I haven't answered? Okay, I don't see any questions. So in that case, I'm going to pass it back over to Paula.
Okay. I just wanted to, maybe people will think up of questions when I go through the next couple slides, but I do want to point out that this webinar will be recorded. It has been recorded, and it'll be archived on our New York COE site listed there. Zach, you may think this is completely intuitive, but it will take some of us watching it a couple times to really have it sink in. And it will also be available on the CDC COE All Tools page. And then you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. And I mean, this is just our page for resources. If you have any questions, if you think of a question afterwards and want to email me, I can be in touch with Zach. I think as we use it, we'll have more questions. I think we'd like to incorporate it here in New York. We don't use it often for outbreak situations, but from what we've learned from you, just by setting this webinar up, it just seems so easy kind of once you have the templates. That's kind of, you got to start with that. But I'm probably going to say this wrong, Zach, but like you have all the coding and stuff that you can share, right, for those templates, and that's what we're going to try to roll out on our COE site. So the IT kind of backing there, is that correct?
Yeah, that's something that we can work with the COE to share that, but it's the IT department will contact the COE Epi Info team, and then they're more than willing to help out with the connections on the back end to connect with Epi Info to your secured server.
Okay.
And the question here, do you have any analyses? Do you do any analyses in Epi Info or always export? You can do some basic analysis in Epi Info, but I have a lot of my stuff coded, so it's always, for me, it's just easier to export it, run it through my code, and then it'll give me the outputs that I'm looking for.
So I think you've addressed all the comments in chat. Are there any other questions from anyone else on the line? At this point, you can unmute yourself. I did mute some people within when we were hearing all the beeps, so you may have to double unmute yourself on both your computer and your phone. But I will give it a second or two for anyone with questions to ask them now. Well, please feel free to reach out to me. I can get in touch with Zach, or if you know, I know a lot of you know Zach already, feel free to bombard him with questions right on this topic. He loves to talk about it. But thank you, Zach, for sharing this information with us. I think some of us need to watch it again and practice it. It's just like anything. We always have to kind of, use it and then see where we're having our errors. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.